We got some breaking news that's coming out of Chicago, but it ties back to Todd Blanche, the embattled nominee for Attorney General. We've got at least one judge, but likely three in total, who are considering appointing a special prosecutor to go after the Department of Justice, its U.S. attorney in Chicago, the Northern District of Illinois, Andrew Boutros, but also tracking back to Todd Blanche and Akash Singh, his right-hand person, because Judge Perry, in a new motion that's been filed for sanctions by the Broadview 6 Defense Counsel, Judge Perry is now considering whether there's been such prosecutorial abuse, such attempts to defraud the court, to delete aspects of grand jury transcripts so that the judge would not be able to know what happened in terms of the abuse of process in order to discipline those people, that is at such a level that the lawyers for the Broadview 6, those First Amendment protesters who were arrested and indicted, they were about to go to trial till the grand jury transcript came to light through one of their motions, because the prosecutors, apparently under pressure by Andrew Boutros and under pressure by the Department of Justice, so the theory goes, threw away all of their ethics and started doing things in front of the grand jury that this prosecutor had never done probably in 12 years, which was to tell the grand jury, you can trust me. This is good evidence. Indict these people. That's called vouching. That's a breach of the golden rule of prosecutorial conduct. And now there is a new call. We'll put it up on the screen here in a minute, in the new motion for a special counsel to be independently appointed by Judge Perry, federal judge in Illinois, to investigate the Northern District of Illinois U.S. Attorney's Office and the lawyers up to Todd Blanche in Washington. And she's not the only judge that's making that kind of consideration. Judge Coleman, same courthouse, same grand jury, same prosecutors, different case, one involving COVID testing and billions of dollars worth of fraud, the Loretto Hospital case. She's also held a sanctions hearing that we're waiting for the results from about whether she's going to appoint a special counsel or prosecutor that's independent from the corrupted Department of Justice to investigate them. And all that against the backdrop of a judge in Miami, federal court named Judge Williams, who's waiting for the final brief, the final shoe to drop against the Department of Justice about whether she was defrauded by, wait for it, fill the blank, Todd Blanche and others, about the anti-weaponization fund, the settlement that created the fund, and whether there's been deceit on the court. And if she thinks there was, you know what she'll do? She will appoint say it with me, special counsel, special prosecutor, independent from the Department of Justice. I'll cover it all right here on the MeidasTouch Network and Legal AF. I'm Michael Popok. Take a minute, come over to the Legal AF YouTube channel and hit the free subscribe button. And if you want to read for yourself this motion for appointment of a special prosecutor that was just filed, you can do so at Legal AF Substack for paid members. Okay, how'd we get here? One grand jury sat for 18 months. Multiple indictments were rendered by that grand jury, or no bills. They didn't return indictments. Main prosecutor, Shari Mecklenburg, now fired and disgraced. But she had been a very well-considered Chicago prosecutor for a long, long time. In fact, I just interviewed Don Lemon, who was a reporter in Chicago. He's like, Shari Mecklenburg, the one that won all the awards? She's great. Yeah, not this time. And I think the reason that she wasn't so great and violated in the grand jury transcript related to the Loretto Hospital case is that, which forced the Department of Justice to file its own motion to dismiss an indictment with prejudice, hoping they wouldn't have to reveal the scandal. I think it's because Andrew Boutros, buddy of Pam Bondi, and Todd Blanche is sitting as the U.S. attorney in the room during the indictments of these people. Are you kidding me? The pressure that she must have felt. I mean, she should have quit instead of been corrupted, but she allowed herself to be corrupted. And the question for the special prosecutor, hopefully to be appointed by Judge Coleman or Judge Perry or Judge Williams, is the pressure placed by Todd Blanche. And we want all this sort of marinated and ready to go because Todd Blanche's confirmation hearing is sometime around the 15th of July before the Senate Judiciary Committee. Let me read to you from the motion. It was filed in the case of United States of America versus Michael Rabbit, Catherine Marie Abogozalia, Andre Martin, Brian Straw, and Catherine Sharp, known as the Broadview Six. And here's what the lawyers say. That they respectfully request this court appoint a special counsel to investigate the misconduct of certain individuals from the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Northern District of Illinois, and if the evidence supports it, prosecute such individuals for criminal contempt. Those who should be investigated for their conduct during the grand jury and the ensuing cover-up before this court begin with the line assistant United States attorneys, that's Sherry Mecklenburg, and advisory employees of the United States Attorney's Office and the front office, which includes Andrew Boutros, as well as his supervisors in Washington, D.C. That's Todd Blanche. They go on to say that indeed these steps must be taken in large part because of what appears to be a determined effort to blame a single prosecutor when the misconduct, now known, runs much deeper and indeed to the highest levels of the Chicago U.S. Attorney's Office and likely to the Department of Justice in Washington. Additionally, much of the misconduct, they say in footnote 1, took place after one of the initially assigned AUSAs left the U.S. Attorney's Office for a special detail in Washington. Thus, the attempt to assign all blame to her, to Sherry Mecklenburg, they say is misplaced. To not appoint a special prosecutor here, they say on page 2, would enable the government strategy to lay all that has happened on a single scapegoat, a convenient outcome for those who are eager to turn the page. The court has the authority, and we think the obligation, to ensure that those responsible by this unique and sorry chapter, a chapter which has dramatically impacted the lives of multiple defendants and enduringly sullied the reputation of the U.S. Attorney's Office earned over decades, are held accountable. And what they want in particular, after going through all the details of the abuse by Boutros, connecting it back to Todd Blanche, what they want is they want a special prosecutor. That's all we ever want with this Trump administration. We just want a special prosecutor to take the evidence and facts and follow them wherever they may be. If you grew up like me, loving those classic Saturday morning cereals, you've got to check out Magic Spoon. It's basically the grown-up version of your childhood favorites with that same nostalgic taste, but packed with protein and made with 0 to 2 grams of sugar per serving. Their original cereal line, it has 12 to 14 grams of protein, 4 to 5 grams of net carbs, and is certified gluten-free, making it an easy option for breakfast, maybe an afternoon snack, or something after a workout. They've got classic flavors like, wait for it, fruity, frosted, peanut butter, cocoa, and cinnamon crunch. And their newer classic marshmallow and s'mores flavors bring real marshmallows and those nostalgic childhood vibes. Magic Spoon treats are also crispy, airy snack bars with 12 grams of protein, 7 grams of fiber, and 0 grams of added sugar. Look for Magic Spoon on Amazon or at your nearest grocery store. And if you want to try something new, check out Magic Spoon's protein pastries. They're packed with protein and taste like those nostalgic toaster pastries you grew up with, but without all the sugar. You can get $5 off your next order, including the protein pastries at magicspoon.com/legalaf. That's magicspoon.com/legalaf for $5 off. They also say that some of the abuse includes whiting out or redacting, over 200 lines of text from the transcript to hide it from the judge. The other judge that's looking at something similar out of the same grand jury abuse, Judge Coleman, she said, this is Pandora's box. You can't, by dismissing the indictment in $1 billion fraud case, bury what happened and the fraud upon this court. That's why she's conducting her own sanctions hearing and will likely, I think, be receptive to appointing and investigating criminal contempt. They say on page, in their motion here for the Broadview 6 on page 18, the prosecutorial misconduct during the grand jury proceedings in this case and the subsequent 6 months of efforts to conceal such misconduct from this court necessitate an investigation by an independent special counsel into whether such conduct constitutes criminal contempt. You see, under Rule 42 of the Federal Rules of Criminal Procedure, a federal judge has that power to appoint a special counsel because they know the Department of Justice won't investigate themselves. As they cite in a case called Young versus U.S. ex-rel Vuitton, a fee about the Louis Vuitton company, the ability to appoint a private attorney to prosecute a contempt action satisfies the need for an independent means of self-protection, without which courts would be mere boards of arbitration whose judgments and decrees would only be advisory. So that is what they are requiring. And this is not the first time that a federal judge has appointed a special prosecutor when they know the Department of Justice is corrupt. They need to do it now. I think Judge Williams, who's investigating whether she was used and abused as a federal judge with a filing of a false case, a collusive case, Trump versus the IRS, which led to a phony settlement agreement, the creation of the weaponization fund, which is all fruit of a poisonous tree, and the creation the day later of a amended settlement signed only by Todd Blanche to give Donald Trump and his family a super pardon of criminal immunity. This has to be investigated. Judges are not the right people. They're the right people to try facts and to be the trier of fact and the giver of law, but they're not the right people to prosecute. Like in other countries, civil code countries, sometimes the judge is the prosecutor and they can actually do investigations. That's not what we have in our system of justice. We have an adversarial process with a judge at the top, at the apex. So here, you need to have an adversarial process. The Department of Justice is never going to do it on their own. And if there's any question about the independence of the Department of Justice being compromised, you have to appoint a special prosecutor. I'm going to continue to call for it here. I'm going to continue to follow it here. Stay right here on Legal AF YouTube channel and on the MeidasTouch Network where I do updates. I'm waiting for a filing on Friday and looking at the chess pieces, looking at Judge Williams' next move. Does she rule on the papers that there has been a contempt of court, that there has been a deception of the court, a fraud on the court in Miami about the IRS case? Or does she hold an evidentiary hearing, which would be quite worse for Todd Blanche, especially if he's required to testify? What does Judge Coleman do in her case involving the Pandora's box of the same grand jury? And how does she get to the bottom of a possible contempt on her court? And now what does Judge Perry do about the motion just filed by the Broadview Sixth Counsel? We'll tie it all together. We won't blow smoke or sunshine. You know that. Hit the free subscribe button on Legal AF YouTube channel. And until my next report, I'm Michael Popok.
Want to stay plugged in? Become a subscriber to our Substack at MeidasPlus.com. You'll get daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, ad-free episodes of our podcast, and more exclusive content only available at MeidasPlus.com.